All right, so we're rolling. Luke, do you want to throw an intro out?
I guess.
You want me to?
You want me to? No, no, you go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
It's always kind of headed by Luke on the intros. I don't mind it.
All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is our block producer meeting for the FIO protocol. I am Luke Stokes, Managing Director, trying to fulfill the mission of the foundation to support this amazing community and this incredible protocol. It is Thursday, April 15th. And Eric, why don't you take it away with our agenda? Thank you all for showing up today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Like you said, it's nothing major for this meeting. It's been about a month. I think I announced Bahamas release last month. Since then, we've actually pulled that release back a few times. I don't see Ed on, so the number 2 piece I'll probably have to lead instead of Ed. But we pulled it back a few times. One was for kind of some issues we found. The second one was we were getting close to deploying some new system contracts for, say, wrapping or staking or different projects that our community is working on. And what we found was some of the security fixes we'd put into the chain early on would have required us to do a chain release once again for every new system contract we deployed, right? So that is our most recent kind of last 2 weeks. We pulled that back. Ed did the fix for it. We threw in another fix that we were finding with on one of our getters for the availability check for domains and addresses. It was actually returning that the address was available even if it had been expired, or the domain if it had been expired but had not yet reached its burn date. So what happens with domains and addresses is you have that expire date, and we're finally hitting a lot of those, and then you have 90 days pretty much until it burns. So in between there, you still want to show it as registered, and so we did a few bug fixes like that. But we think we are finally ready. We are an RC. Well, let me pull it up and share here. Sorry, while we're talking. Everyone got my main screen there with the RC3 going?
Looks good.
Okay, so we are on RC3 now, and it looks very much the same as RC2, but I added a rollout schedule, which I want to review as well, and it actually includes all of the updates from the PRs. So let me just look through this real quick. So yeah, nothing really new that we haven't discussed already. Again, this includes some of the changes, a lot of the new endpoints that have been in recent FIP contract rollouts. So this is finally catching up on a lot of those. I can show you on the master release plan. It's often a little easier to look there. So here's the Bahamas labeled now 3.0. What we're looking at is a lot of modified endpoints, getters, and then several new getters. One of them that's going to particularly useful for our wallets is this, where is it? Get receive FIO requests. So you can now retrieve all the FIO requests at once instead of just the pending ones. So I think most of you have either seen this or looked through it since it's been on the plate for several months now. I've run out of excuses, so we actually have to get this out the door. So let's go back to the releases. And this release has that second phase of the updating of the tables for FIO requests and OBT records, right? And so if you recall, we did the initial contract rollout for that. And then the last thing we did was roll out the contract that enabled the migration of the data from the old tables to the new tables. So once that is done, we're supporting data in both tables. So we've actually done that table migration of the data in testnet. It worked fine. We rolled out the actual contract to mainnet, but haven't done the data migration because we wanted to wait to as close as possible before Bahamas rolls out, because it adds a little bit of a CPU overhead to be maintaining both those tables. So we're going to eventually, do that that data migration, and then roll out Bahamas immediately right before we roll out Bahamas. So as soon as we're done with testnet and we're getting close on that testing, we're going to do that data migration. So this does require, what happens with this release though, is to accommodate the new table structure for the FIO requests and OBT requests, we have to update the endpoint. So this isn't a forking change per se, but it does break, and that's why we incremented the major from 2 to 3. It does break one of the endpoints. And so I mean, that won't break the wallet's calling it, but if a wallet is pointing to a API node that hasn't upgraded, it will not return the correct data, or it will return empty data. I think it is for a lot of those endpoints once we delete all that data. So it is a required update, though not a forking update. So therefore, let's roll through this schedule. It may be
I want to give a little more color to that as well, just to, because I know not everyone's probably as close to this as our team is, right? So I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, thanks.
Questions if we have any, but essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we at one point kind of run forward with this at some level at mainnet and pulled it back a little bit? I'm forgetting. I just remember there was one point where we were starting a migration that was probably testnet then that I'm thinking of. But we've had the process where you're going to, turn on writing to both tables, roll out the endpoint that then reads from the new table as we continue to write to both tables. And then you get to a point where eventually we have confirmation that all of you have upgraded, all of our wallets have upgraded, all of our exchanges, everyone that we know of has upgraded their node to the new endpoints. And then at that point, we're safe to go ahead and, remove the process of writing to both tables, remove the data from the old table, and basically move forward with the new endpoint. So that's kind of the flow from a higher level view of what we're rolling out here. Does that make sense? Is there any questions on that process? I think we've gone through it a number of times, but I want to make sure if there's anyone new on the call here that maybe hasn't been watching this as closely. And also just, I think we even had a whole separate meeting specifically talking about the migration path and got your feedback on that. But I just want to make sure we're all clear on what we're talking about here. So if any questions, just raise your hand and let's talk it through.
All good. I did have that list of kind of those different releases. It's kind of at the bottom here where I have the steps for that, but I can't find my document where I had it a little more clear. But yeah, there's 4 steps to that rollout, and we're in the second step here for the Bahamas chain update. And then we'll do 2 more contract updates that kind of complete the transition. That's exactly right, Luke.
And this here, everything in the FIO development workspace, this is publicly available, or do you have to log in, or? Yeah, it is public. So what we can do after this call, we'll go ahead and just as a reminder, kind of link that all up in the channel, and you guys can kind of just read through it and just, spend a few minutes to make sure you're up to speed on where we're at with the process today and where we're going. And that roadmap is great.
Okay. So the tentative roadmap right now is rolling out. I was seriously considering putting it out tomorrow just because it's a Friday and I'd like to do that. And it's only a chain release, right? Only a huge chain release. So, but I'll probably get it out next week. I do have some questions on how we want to approach that. If we just want to throw it out to all BPs, or if a few BPs want to take a look at first and do some initial testing before everyone jumps on board. I'm good either way. This actually is a fairly heavily tested internally release. We've had this up on DevNet through several iterations. Todd's worked through several kind of test iterations as well, using starting from Genesis. That was another bug that we found that pulled back. So Todd did find an issue with some of the add action stuff we had in our Genesis startup code. That pulled it back for a week as well. So there's been quite a bit of testing, but we can talk about that. So I have it being in testnet for 2 weeks. I don't know if that's a little aggressive on getting all of at least our BPs upgraded and tested, because I do want to take some time, because it's going to take at least, I think, 3 to 4 weeks for me to work through all of our different partners and exchanges and wallets, the growing list. A lot of them are just pointing to your API, your nodes. So I think those obviously are easy, but a lot of the exchanges are running internally. I know we've actually had some problems with some exchanges recently as they're upgrading and things like that. So that could take a while. And I want to get to that as fast as possible for mainnet. So I have that taking 4 weeks, which may even be aggressive, but I think we can do it. I think last time it did take like about 3 weeks to get upgraded, but we only had about a quarter of the number. So this may be a little aggressive. And again, there's nothing in the code that dictates these dates. So if it's running slow, we just don't deploy that next contract for a while, right? So that next contract is what will break the API, and we can put that out whenever we want. So just to be clear, if we get it done faster, we can roll that contract out faster. So that's getting all mainnet nodes to be upgraded, API nodes, and then deploy the update contracts that requires the new API endpoint, and this is the breaking change. So that's what I have now. It's a 6-week schedule. Any thoughts on that? Reasonable?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay.
And we'll probably do like we've done in similar cases where we'll kind of ask you and have a spreadsheet like to check in yourself to be like, hey, we've upgraded our node, we're confirmed, we're good. These are our public facing nodes that are listed in the, the FIO mainnet GitHub that we know wallets are accessing. And so we will go through that checklist process to make sure, and any help you guys can provide on that to get your nodes upgraded and to report kind of to everyone else where your status is, that would be really, really helpful for everybody.
Yep, no, for sure. We'll have that going, and for all of our API nodes as well, like partners. Okay, that's all I have with this. So keep an eye out for that. Should be coming out very soon.
So Eric, sorry for coming in late. I honestly just spaced it. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
Did you guys get into a discussion yet of some of the testing that we've done for DevNet for these latest changes to allow new contracts to be added and stuff like that? Did you get into that yet?
That is exactly the next thing on the agenda. Perfect timing, man.
Sorry for interrupting your flow, bro.
No, I was just finishing up that #1 Bahamas release stuff. So
very good.
I think there's no questions, and we're ready to roll it. Did you want me to? We're not sharing something on that, or I'll just let you roll on that. Just questions, right?
We can just talk it through. Sure. You want me to just talk it? All right, very good. So as you guys may be aware, we've made some changes that we've added into the Bahamas release that will permit contracts and new contract owning accounts to be added into the FIO protocol without any changes to the core code of the contract. I hope that, do you guys have any questions about what core code is? It's like, the build of Node EOS C++ code. You won't have to upgrade your nodes in order to add a contract. Contract can be added with a set of actions and instructions that can be performed using MSIG. Does that make sense? Okay, very good. So one of the things that I've been kind of trying to think through in this journey of taking these changes is we're adding these changes and we're adding these working procedures that will allow new accounts and contracts to be added. We're adding the new code and we're testing it on a local dev box. We're testing it on DevNet. We're testing it on DevNet without the use of MSIG. We're just using the EOS.io account and the private keys that we have on DevNet. And so the discussion for me becomes, I'd really love on testnet to be able to go through the exercise of adding a new contract as part of the rollout of these changes. So, and the conversation has gone through a process, and the process has led me to the understanding of it might be okay to accept the risk of, we've done these instructions step by step on DevNet using the EOS.io account, and we haven't yet done the full-blown adding of a contract step by step on testnet. But we'll put these changes in on a testnet. We will allow the block producers to go through their good process of vetting these changes and making sure that they're good. They'll be rolled out to mainnet. Then at some point, the first contract will be added to the protocol. This will be put onto testnet. And that's the time when we will find any gotchas in the process and we will resolve them. So to me, hopefully this process that I'm talking about resonates with you guys and I'm making some sense. So I'll turn it over to discussion.
And it might be helpful. Maybe I can unpack it a little bit too from my perspective.
Please do. Any help is appreciated. Yep.
So as you know, like we had an issue where you couldn't have new actions on the chain because of the whitelist system. And those were like going to have to be a node deploy each time, which is not feasible for exchanges or anything. So we did do that upgrade. It went well. And we're at a place now we were able to add new actions without having to rebuild the nodes. What we came to discover, we've got the domain marketplace that's being built. We've got other new system contracts that are coming out. And we realized when we started looking at our roadmap, we have a lot of system contracts that are going to be coming out. I mean, the FIO protocol's functionality, we've got some really cool NFT stuff we've been talking about. So there's some really neat potential here. And we realized, oh, well, we actually need to fix this even further. And it was kind of already in the plan previously, but we're running into it now. So we had to have a mechanism where you could update which accounts are system accounts that can, basically have unlimited resources. because you have these resource constraints on accounts, right? Where system accounts clearly don't have that. So this fix basically says in a very similar way, and I think it's even potentially using the same tables, if I'm not mistaken, where it says, hey, these are the accounts and these are the actions that are whitelisted that are okay. And so in that process, when Ed and I were talking it through, we're like, well, we want to test it on testnet, but we don't feel comfortable about testnet being in a different state as mainnet, meaning you'd have a new fee for a new account that is a dummy action that you're just putting there for testing. And now that's always going to be out of sync with mainnet. If you just were to grab all the fees on testnet and grab all the fees on mainnet as an example, they would be out of sync. There'd be more fees on testnet, which would be kind of weird, right? So as we talked it through, we said, well, what is the real risk of this if we deploy this code all the way to mainnet? And it's similar to the way I looked at it, was similar to how companies deploy dark code that hasn't been run yet. It can be run, but the risk to me was very, very low because the only people that can run it would be all of you, right? These are system level contracts and MSIG level things that have to be done. So that's where through the discussion, we said, well, let's try to keep testnet and mainnet in sync. And really, if there was an issue, we either find it now or we find it later, but either way, we would absolutely find it prior to mainnet. And that was the key there that I felt comfortable saying, let's go ahead and move this all the way forward. And then, the very next system contract that we're ready to deploy will be the first real world case where we're doing this. And if we run into an issue on testnet, we'll definitely resolve it, fix it, figure it all out prior to it ever hitting mainnet. So does that help explain? I know there's a lot of details there. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page with that. And feel free to give like the thumb up reactions if you don't want to say anything on camera. That works on Zoom too. Sweet. We got physical thumbs up. We got digital thumbs up. We got smiles. I think we're good. But it's again, it's one of those, it's a little bit weird because we're pushing code to mainnet that we haven't fully completely run through its entire paces, although we have extensively on the devnet. And so one of the options was like, we could spin up another network, which, has all its own drama and challenges. And so figured for this case, didn't make much sense. But I feel like we're getting pretty close to a 2/3 plus 1 thumbs up here on the number of interactions I've seen. So, all right. I think we just crossed the threshold there. All right, cool. I think that's good. Any questions at all about that? Does that all make sense?
Yeah, so Luke, it sounds like the final decision is we are not going to roll out that test contract to testnet now. We'll do it when we roll out our next contract. If we find issues, the worst case scenarios, we just have to throw a fix out for, a patch out for the nodes. So, but
yeah, I figure it's going to bump our timeline either now or later, but either way, and it's a clearly known issue. We all are aware of it now. We're going to be really careful with the first deploy of a new system contract, knowing that this code is running through its paces for the first time. And it should go well on testnet. Therefore, we'll do it on mainnet after that.
Yeah, and we have been able to get, we've tested these changes fairly rigorously comparatively to other changes that we've done on the protocol of equal risk. So, the confidence level is very high. I think the only gotcha is we haven't tested it under MSIG as per operational protocols. And that is a pretty small delta. And thus I've just jinxed it really good. So that's great. So, it will probably be the staking changes that will be our first opportunity in the protocol. Of course, I can't predict the future, but it's likely that the staking changes will be the first thing to do this. And we'll be able to get through the process of adding that at that time. I'll try and post on the chat the link to the story that relates to this. Maybe Eric, you can put that a link up to BD 2448 to the team. And that has the instructions, the step-by-step instructions that I've evolved so that you guys can see the step-by-step instructions. What you have to do is to add a new system contract, you basically first modify 3 files in the contract layer. You modify an include file and then the system contract in 2 of its files, just adding 1 new line for a check. And then you deploy that. And then after doing that, you can then do the MSIGs. It's probably 8 commands to create the contract, set the permissions, set it to privileged, then basically setting the new actions on the new contract, and then finally setting the new contract, and that completes the process. So it's something you guys are probably very familiar with once you see it.
Thanks, Ed.
And we could probably, most likely, as long as it's not too big of an MSIG, we could probably bundle all that stuff together into, you know, one deploy, most likely. But I'll rely on you guys with your experience on whether that makes sense or not.
And this is all in the pretty far off future. It's probably 6 or 7 weeks away from now. So we'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about it again.
I know on some of those MSIGs where we try to roll a lot in, we get dinged on, you know, the max execution. So that'd be the only thing.
Exactly. I think that's the only limitation that I could see. So as we get to our first one, we can start looking at that, and we can carve it up into 2 MSIGs if we need to.
All right. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Luke.
If I can add just one more little bit of color here. During the testing, we were able to do some really good performance testing on this new approach of validating the system accounts in the FIO protocol using the actions table. So the contract name is, or the account name is in the actions table. And we're using that to get the list of system contracts that are the special contracts in the FIO protocol. We were actually able to take the time. It's one of the first times on the project when we've been able to do some really intensive load testing on the set code and the set ABI, and with this new logic in it. And the good news is we were able to basically double the size of our existing system contract, which we would never really want to do that because it's pretty seriously bloated at that level. And it still wasn't having errors. If you make it, you know, maybe 25 bytes bigger than, you know, or close to double the size, then it starts to fail, as we've seen in the past, due to it's just too big and it doesn't have it doesn't have the resources to finish the set code. But this performance testing was really comforting to me because it really gave us some concrete knowledge that we actually have room on our biggest contract to almost double it in size. And we're not doing that. We're going to be adding new contracts, keeping a nice componentized decomposition of our contracts as we go forward. So that's the last bit I have on that. Thank you.
I was thinking, Eric, do you want to do the fees part last, actually? Because that's probably the section we might have the most discussion on. As far as the FIPS and projects, what are the details there you want to cover?
I'd like to open it up to Pavo, who's often got items out for a request for comment here. Pavo, do you have anything that you want to cover now that we're focusing on?
Always.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
I always have a lot, and I know I'm bombarding you guys with all sorts of stuff to review, but I appreciate it if you guys have you know, give some time to some of the projects here. So let me just try to post some links here, and just very, very briefly, I know we have lots of other stuff to discuss, but maybe you can just click on the link and keep that tab open, and later in the day or tomorrow, take a look at it and give feedback. That would be awesome. Awesome. So let's see, what do we have? So one of the things that's actually fairly new that we started discussions on, but are actually planning to hopefully accelerate this very quickly, is this new notion of using the FIO address as a signature for NFTs. So obviously you guys seen there's a lot of stuff happening in the NFT space. And one of the big problems is that nobody really can today verify that you own an NFT. So there's a lot of scammers out there going to websites and saying, "Hey, I own this NFT. I want to sell it," right? And people, you know, don't really have a mechanism for validating and really knowing who authored a particular NFT. So we've been in discussions with some NFT marketplaces and kind of trying to figure out how could potentially FIO help with that. And so here's a brief write-up on that topic specifically. And we're actually having some very good feedback from one of the platforms that is said that they're willing to implement this as soon as this is out. So it's very likely that we're going to really accelerate the FIP development of this functionality in the near future. So if you guys, again, can review this, that would be really appreciated. The other item here that I wanted you to take a look at is, and I'm sorry, I just kind of, there you go, which is potentially eliminating renewal fees on FIO address. This is really just a concept right now. So we haven't even gotten to, it's not even a pre-FIP phase. There's no spec to it. It's just really kind of a concept that's that we're throwing out there. I've done some usability testing of the Edge Wallet FIO integration in the I think last a month, and that is something that came up, is people are really concerned that this, you know, this renewal fee is always there, and what if they forget to renew, and does that mean I'm now losing my address and somebody else can register it and steal my funds and all of that? So kind of thinking about it, hey, would it make sense, especially given that it's an NFT, to potentially, you know, not have an expiration of a FIO address? Now you would still have to purchase the bundle transactions, right? So that if you're still using the FIO address, like sending FIO requests or doing lots of mappings, you would still have to purchase the bundle transaction. So there would still be cost coming into the chain. I mean, fees coming into the chain, as they should if there's activity. But if somebody, you know, just buys this FIO address and they don't use it for a year and forget about it, then right now they'll just lose it. So that's another concept that's out there. Those are probably the two kind of urgent ones. Staking, of course, hopefully you guys had the opportunity to review staking, but if you haven't, we've actually just accepted that FIP. It's FIP 21, again linking here. So there is actually active development on this right now. So if there is any feedback or any concerns you guys have, especially as a reminder, the way staking is going to work, it's going to reduce the block producer pay from 85% to 60%, meaning the fees that are coming in. Today, it's basically 85% going to the a block producer, 5 going to the foundation, and 10 going to the TPIT if it's present. If it's not, it goes to the block producers. Well, we're actually introducing, as part of this FIP, a concept of redirecting 25% of all the fees paid into this rewards bucket that is then being distributed to all of the token holders that are staking their tokens. And staking is really intended to encourage people to participate in governance, meaning vote on you guys. So in order to stake tokens, you actually, as a token holder, you have to have voted for block producers, either through proxy or directly. So anyway, that's an important one that we're actually doing active development on this. So please take a look at that and provide feedback. And there's probably more, but I'm not going to overwhelm you guys. So those are kind of the top 3 that I would appreciate some feedback on.
Yeah, the only other one that I might add to that list would be the FIO Domain Marketplace. As you know, this is a really great, exciting project for us because it's the core team that kind of initially has been working on the protocol is not directly leading this charge. You know, and that's a beautiful thing. That's the direction we want to head, right? A fully decentralized system where everyone in the community is participating and adding value. So the domain marketplace project is going forward. There is a bit of a learning curve, as I'm sure you can imagine, trying to build native FIO smart contracts that are, you know, part of system contracts. So our team has been involved a lot more of late to kind of help guide that. And so you can see through the history of that. That's the latest FIP 26 FIO domain marketplace. It's still in draft. So there's definitely room for input. We would love that input. Our team has gone back and forth quite a bit on that. Lots of active development on the FIP. They are also starting to prototype that out. So we would definitely love your feedback on that. If there's anything that you see there that's a big red flag, please let us know. But I think it's moving along fairly well. I think the project is moving along nicely. And it's just, yeah, again, great to see a full-fledged project from start to finish being managed and, you know, from UI all the way to smart contracts, you know, by another group, you know, which is great. We love to see that. And I really encourage all of you as well, if you have ideas to improve FIO, and you want to participate at that level, we would love to see more of that. And in this case, the foundation was able to give a small grant to help with that as well. So those opportunities exist as well. I know in the past, there's been kind of like, well, if you're a block producer, you're already getting paid, so you can't really do extra above and beyond work. And I think we found a model where it's like, hey, you know, if it's clearly adding value and you're building a whole team to build something out, you know, I think this is what the community treasury is being managed for that purpose, you know, by the foundation to help support that activity. So I think the steering committee and everything is on board with that. So just want to throw that one out there as well. Awesome. Thank you, Pavo. And again, I know Pavo sometimes he feels probably like a broken record, constantly asking you guys for input, but this is, this is how we have an amazing protocol. This is how it's not just, one centralized thing where, we didn't have enough people looking at it and there was some bug that hit us all later, right? This is how we can have excellent code, is we got a lot of experts like yourselves looking stuff over, really evaluating it, making sure we didn't miss something, because this is all code you guys are running on your servers, and you're staking your response, your reputation and your responsibility on that, as far as not getting calls early in the middle of the night when something isn't working the way it's supposed to. So super appreciate you guys as early as possible providing feedback on this stuff. I guess, let's see, anything else? Yep. Oh, thank you. Yep. That's FIP 26. Perfect. And then also too, I noticed David mentioned there is a slide deck for the NFT idea that was discussed, where again, we're getting a lot of excitement about that. I kind of imagine like Anders probably woke up when he heard NFT. I know a lot of us are involved in Michael Yates with the, Alien Worlds. There's a lot of people on this call that are definitely working with NFTs. So this is one that we would love for you guys to take a look at, because we're really excited about it as well. And we really think it could be a great service to the whole community in blockchain, like across multiple chains, whether your NFTs are on, Wax or Ethereum or BSC or wherever.
Are we using any of the existing standards for the NFTs, or you guys are developing a new one?
It's not an NFT standard as much as it's we want a place to point you to where you can go find the NFT. So we've narrowed that down to like a token ID concept. So it's really like, chain code, token code, like a FIO address right now. And we're adding this token ID. So it's like, it's a way to uniquely identify that particular NFT. But then beyond that, we don't want to take over from existing standards, right? We don't want to become a new NFT standard, but that's a great question. And we'd love to have those. Like, we want to make sure that we've got sufficiently enough information to reference an NFT, but not take over from whatever you get once you go there, wherever it is you're going. So we'd definitely love to talk through all that kind of stuff. That would be fantastic. We're making great time on the meeting here. I think all we have left on the agenda is the fees, right? Unless we want to talk a little bit more about anything that Pablo just brought up. All right, I guess we can discuss fees. It kind of became a hot topic over the last few days. So let's talk about it. I want to make sure we have really clear expectations. I'll kind of start it off with my understanding of the expectations, and then really would love to hear from you guys as well. So there's a couple of pieces involved. I have a bias in that I was a witness on the Steam and Hive blockchain where we were responsible for a price feed. And so I have some personal experience with what that expectation is. So it's as simple as you are running a server, you're running a script of sorts that you have customized and modified according to your particular preference on how often you think those price feeds should be updated. And you've automated that with some process, and you have systems in place to check whether it's running as it should be. And in the Hive community, for example, there's a lot of discussion about how consistent that should be, and the idea being that it really shouldn't be everybody doing the same thing. If everyone does the same thing and there's a problem, like if they're all checking CoinMarketCap or whatever, and then there's a hack on CoinMarketCap and somebody spikes the prices in some weird way or whatever, that would obviously be really bad. So it's a combination of different data sources for truth as to the price discovery of what you're bringing in. It's a combination of different types of scripts. So maybe somebody's running a custom node script, somebody's running something in Go, you have different approaches to how to do it. And then it's on top of that, a combination of different patterns, meaning if, let's say every single BP updated their prices every single day at midnight, right? That's a very predictable pattern. And if someone knew that pattern, they could potentially exploit it in a weird way by messing with the market in some way. And so these are the type of things that we get when we have decentralization. We have different approaches, different perspectives, different opinions. So that all said, that's the benefit of everybody kind of doing their own thing as far as the price feed. I'll add to that, we're a little bit unique in that we're kind of like a retail service. The FIO address, getting a FIO address, getting a FIO domain, our partners, our website, we've kind of advertised this on a suggested retail price of $2 a year and $40 a year. Certainly open for discussion if we want to change that, but please understand it's like we're changing a decentralized business model if we change that. We have to get the entire consortia to understand that and agree to it if we are going to make those kind of changes. So at this point, we're not suggesting changes in that retail pricing. Again, we can have that conversation, but that's not the conversation today. So that being said, there is an expectation that what is being communicated today is going to hold true. So if the price of a domain fluctuates beyond $40, like it did the other day, somebody mentioned this and they were frustrated by it. Like, and it was actually, I know that particular situation, they were given tokens enough to purchase a domain. And then when they went to purchase the domain, they couldn't anymore because the feed had gotten off and it was like $51 instead of $40. Obviously, there are different spikes and there are different opinions on whether or not those spikes should even be honored. Some would argue, you let those spikes settle themselves out and you wait for things to settle back down. Others would say, no, you need to update your price feed, every minute or every hour or whatever. And this is the beauty, again, of difference of opinions. You guys can put your opinion out there and then you can stand on it as a pillar to get voted for. So that's a long discussion from my perspective. Absolutely love to hear your perspectives as well. But I would say that I do think there's an expectation that it should be automated and a process you control according to whatever frequency you're comfortable with. And it should be a process that hopefully accomplishes the goal of the user experience from a retail perspective being consistent with what they were marketed to and what they were told. So that's kind of the start of the discussion. Any other additional thoughts? And then let's go from there.
So Luke, I'd like to understand the thought process around marketing a price, $2 and $40, and then saying that it's up to the BPs to decide what the price is. Because things like this happen where the price goes up. It wasn't what somebody expected, but it is the price that the BPs set. I mean, maybe it wasn't on purpose that it went to 51, but that was the price. So telling people that it's 40 when it's not 40, it's a marketing issue. And I don't know, I think if we think it should be a set price, maybe there's a different way to make price modifications. Like maybe once every 6 months, the BPs vote on setting a new price and then we communicate that price out. But this daily shift in price doesn't sit with a steady USD equivalent that we're communicating out to people. I'd love to hear people's
thoughts on that. I want to make sure I really am clear on how we design the fee mechanism to support our marketing message. So there's two processes with setting fees, right? There's a whole set of fees that are generally based on the storage capacity, performance, and everything else that you have to maintain as a BP. Meaning if certain fees aren't matching and it's like, I've got to bump that fee up because I have to get more servers to support this feature. That is absolutely, I would argue, within complete control of the BPs, and you'll get voted in and out based on your decisions you make there. But there are just two fees really that bubble all the way up to be kind of the core fees that are marketed. And that's the $2 and $40. And we've structured things that all the other fees kind of pin off of that in a certain way. And there are two pieces to it. So you have individual fees and then you've got the multiplier. So it's really important to understand the multiplier is the mechanism where no matter where the FIO price is going up and down and up and down and down, you can continually tweak that multiplier to keep it right at that US dollar amount. If the BPs were actively on a regular basis, constantly changing that multiplier and that and those other fees to set it at what they believed it should be, for example, $50, then I would fully agree with you, Brad. And I'd be like, whoa, okay, I'm off. We need to have a new discussion with the whole consortia. $40 is not what they want. They want a different price. We need to talk about it. I've yet to hear that from anybody, that $40 the suggested retail price is not the price that we're going for. If that's a conversation we should have, let's immediately have it. But my understanding was it's clear, it's $40, and our responsibility is to modify that multiplier to keep it there as often as we feel we need to.
Yeah, but with current system, there will be discrepancies always. So right now it's $40.25. So it's not $40.
Yeah.
Because with the system we have, it's almost impossible to keep it always at $40. Maybe it will be 39, maybe it will be 42.
And that's important. I think that's maybe a different discussion than, it's not going to ever be exactly 40. So for example, we should change our marketing to be tilde 40 and say about 40 or something. Like, I think there are certainly marketing messages. I'm getting you completely. That makes perfect sense.
Half the time is going to produce the same result. I got 40 tokens, or I got $40. It costs $40.25. You're right. It's a very small delta.
Yeah, and a FIO address is $2.01, so it's not $2. So
correct.
But I want to be careful that like that's somewhat, yeah, and it's important from a marketing message. We don't want to false advertise. We definitely should always, and I think we do this mostly. We do say around $2 and around $40 because you don't want to do false advertising, right? If you're advertising something that's not what it is. But I also want to be careful that it's like we don't need to be too like engineer about it, right? It's 201, so therefore it doesn't equate. You know, it's not necessarily
that was the scenario that you described, was that, you know, and it's valid, is that, and we've all gotten burned on it, is that, especially on E, damn, I'm a little short for my gas fee, you know. Yeah. And you're screwed, you know, you're hemmed up. I get how frustrating it is. And that's why I'm like, no, it's a valid point, but it's the same concept, is that
exactly.
Oh, it's great if you're on the bottom side, but if you're anywhere above the top, you're hoping for a price drop.
Yeah, no, and this is what we've done with the dashboard that we're working on, the FIO dashboard. We've actually designed it in such a way that like we're going to let users say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and buy this in like a shopping cart perspective, and we're going to basically take a signed transaction that we're holding, and we're not going to basically broadcast it until we get the funds. Like they send us the Bitcoin, for example, so we can know what the real price of the FIO cost is going to be at that moment. Because if you put it out there as a deferred transaction, and maybe, you know, it's a slow block day, and so you don't get the Bitcoin for like 2 hours later, the FIO price might change, and you wouldn't even have collected enough. You know, your signed transaction might have the wrong max fee, for example. So I've run into this with little tools that I've played with my faucet and stuff. It's like I used to just take the fee at that moment, and later I tried to broadcast a transaction, it was the wrong fee. So yeah, so I think there's a balance here. But if I'm hearing us correctly, we're not saying that the $40 amount is you know wrong, and we need to have a large conversation with everyone to switch
Correct.
it to like 50. We are saying we should be careful about the marketing to say, hey, it fluctuates. It may not be exact. We're going to do our job to get it close. And I think we're all kind of in agreement that we could probably do that better. I think as I'm hearing conversations, there was not as much shared understanding of this is your own personal responsibility as a VP. There are different ways to do it. We've shared multiple scripts, and there's been some, mainly like with some of the early developer team, there's been some pushback to say, we really don't want to provide you with a script because we do want the benefit of, replication and multiple people doing this in different ways. So if we just tell you, hey, go do this way, we're not necessarily getting that benefit, because if there's a bug in that approach, then it impacts, let's say half the BPs or something. That wouldn't be resilient or redundant, right?
I think what I'm also hearing though, Luke, is like, I mean, we're a usability layer, and is it the best user experience to have a floating price on domains and addresses?
Well, the way I look at it is it's better than what we've seen by not giving a US dollar price, right? Like we've seen much, much worse when they're like, it's X Ethereum, and people are like, whoa, that's $300 now. And I thought it was going to be about $20, right? So I agree with you. It's not great, but maybe this is a reason why at some point in the future we might integrate with something like a chain link or something. Like maybe there'd be a way to do this in a more secure, like real-time, decentralized, distributed Oracle way. But
can't the oracles that are going to be used for wrapping potentially play a role in that? Maybe.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's again, it's already built into what the current BPs are meant to do. It really just, I guess, comes down to a frequency. If they're doing it more frequently, that usability pain goes down from one perspective.
Aloha's tool is just phenomenal. That shows everyone's fees. It's fantastic if nobody's looked at it. I think one of the problems in these sort of like EOS game theory, like these kind of decentralized environments, is that nobody wants to be the bad guy because everyone, when your income relies on people voting for you, everyone is hesitant to be the bad guy. But like it's completely obvious like who the violators are just by glancing at Aloha's tool. And maybe one thing that we could do next week is just send some friendly reminders to people. So we'll try to do that.
I mean, one thought is instead of having it always like 1 or 2 cents over, you could target just a few cents under. I don't know, with your tools, then they're happily surprised. I don't know, they won't kind of get stuck, as Michael was talking about, right? With not having the right amount in their account or having transferred in Bitcoin and it's, 3 cents under, damn, I don't get that domain or something.
That's a good idea.
Great point, Eric. And then to Roman's point that like, I don't think we're having a problem of just that little. I think we're having a problem just, you know, I don't know if I would have used the term violators, but yeah, it kind of feels that way. When you look at it, it's like, we're not really all following the plan we thought was clear. So let's make sure
there's some numbers here that are way off. Like everyone's being nice, but like it's obvious what's going on. So, but I think some gentle reminders will fix everything.
Yep. And the more you guys can help with that process, like I don't want to be the bad guy coming from the foundation's perspective either. Obviously, we'll look into this and we do send messages and stuff. You know, you've seen me ping people when the nodes are down or whatever, but the more you guys can help with that process, that would be great as well.
We do plan to add the last voted time to this table at some point. We just haven't had time. And one idea we sort of tossed around too was adding something to the reliability bot that throws up a message if somebody hasn't voted after X amount of days or something.
That's a great idea. And also too, I know Todd has some great tools as well that he's put out, some BP tools. I don't know, Todd, if you want to drop that link in there, that also has some similar type of like performance metrics for proxies to know who's doing their job well and things like that. Yeah, there you go. That's also another really great tool to kind of check in on with your node and see where you're at. And he's got his own, you know, idea for how this is calculated.
And I did throw it out to mainnet. One other, I mean, we talk about address and domain purchase and renewal, but that ad bundle transactions that came out recently, I think the idea behind that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pavel, was that would be very closely tied to the address cost, because it's just for users who want to buy those bundles without constantly pumping their address renewal forward, or, you know, buy in groups of 100. But the idea was it would be that 100 bundles for the cost of an address still type pricing. And I think it's gotten out of whack. It looks like it's about at $11 now. So just something you may want to tie to that renew address, same ratio.
That's a really good point, Eric. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I've been making the assumption that those two are exactly the same, and I realized that now they can be. And I think it was an important reason why we discussed locking them together and decided that they had to be different fees. But
well, nothing's really locked together in there, so that's not functionality we have. So, but yeah, kind of mentally we should.
So yeah, I just want to make sure that's clear. That was a nice nuanced point, that renewing a FIO address and adding a single bundle should be the same price. And that is the $2 a year that we're aiming for. And that's where you can adjust your multiplier based on the fluctuation of the FIO price to hit that $2. So this has been a great discussion on fees. Any other inputs or thoughts? I want to make sure everybody's, if I was to summarize, it sounds like, you know, hey, we got work to do as BPs to get consistent with this. We've got work to do potentially on the marketing side, just to review everything that we're putting out, that the partners are putting out, to make sure it's a kind of roughly 2 and 40. And so we're not misleading people or false advertising or anything like that. And then we've got some potential improvements that, you know, Aloha's been doing an amazing job providing that tool, and so maybe some improvements to make it even better would be great. Any other thoughts? All righty. Other than that, we do have, I guess another thing I should mention is today is actually the official first, although it's kind of, you know, kind of a process to get there, but this is the first official vote day for the board of directors for the Foundation for Internet Wallet Operability. Obviously, we don't, you know, have a ton of control as far as the chain itself. That's all you guys. We provide guidance, and that's about it. But that first vote went today, and so we are expanding, or is going on today. And so we're expanding the board a bit to the 9 that we had originally planned. And those happen 3 times a year. So we're going to be continuing to improve the systems. You know, eventually that will be a full functioning DAC-DAO on-chain mechanism. Right now, it's just being done with FIO requests. So it's partially on-chain, and the results will be verifiable that we'll publish, of course. There isn't a ton of voting because we haven't pushed a whole lot of people towards that yet. But in the future, it's going to be a big deal. I mean, the foundation is managing a significant treasury. So these are things that are important, and how that treasury gets used is important. So we do think as the FIO protocol grows, the influence of, you know, the community treasury and the board that has been elected by the token holders, or influenced by the token holders as far as this kind of straw poll process, will matter. So anyway, just want to give a heads up that that is happening and will happen again in 4 months, and we'll continue to improve the process for all of that. Any other thoughts on that specifically, David, that you want to bring up? I know you've helped a lot with that. Really appreciate your efforts there.
No. Hopefully some of the people on this call voted. I think some did. But like we said, the process for voting needs to be improved as far as how token holders actually vote. But yeah, I'm excited. We've got 9 board members, all from the crypto industry and most from FIO integrated products. And so that's really was the vision all along. So it's exciting to continue to see that progress down the road that we envisioned for it. And like Luke said, it's a little clunky now, and it's in a year or so though, we kind of expect it to be easier for people to vote. We kind of anticipate that there's going to be more candidates for seats on the board than there are seats to give out. So that isn't the case yet, but I think in a year will be the case, which will be great.
And just to remind everybody, all the community treasury, or almost all of it, the significant portion of it definitely is all under multi-sig. So we have a Gnosis safe for Ethereum assets. We've got a Gnosis safe for Binance Smart Chain assets. And of course, we've got the FIO chain multi-sig treasury there as well. So that's kind of the main role of the board, is making sure that those funds are being distributed according to the budget that we are planning and working with. So yeah, and that process is so much of that is all available on the community confluence that Pablo's done a great job putting together. So I think that's pretty much it. We probably give you 5 minutes to get a coffee or a drink or hang out before your next meetings. I'm sure you got other stuff you got going on today, unless there's any other things we want to talk about. Nope. All right. Well, we're finishing 5 minutes early then. We'll put this up on YouTube so everybody can check it out. Again, thank you all so very much for your time. Super appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later.
Bye. Cheers. Bye. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Cheers.